What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to my 2025 NFL mock draft. Let's not mince any words here, let's get right into it. With my first overall pick, I have the Tennessee Titans selecting Cam Ward from University of Miami. Cameron Ward is the obvious number one overall pick selection. He is the best quarterback in this class. The Tennessee Titans desperately need a quarterback of the future. He throws a really accurate deep ball, and he has great scrambling ability. I would say a good pro comp for him is Russell Wilson. With the second overall pick, I have the Cleveland Browns taking Travis Hunter from Colorado. Travis Hunter is easily the best prospect in this year's draft. If the Tennessee Titans didn't need a quarterback, Travis Hunter would be the number one overall pick. He's an amazing DB and an amazing receiver, the Heisman from 2024, truly a generational talent. Now, as far as player comps go, as a receiver, I think his best player comp is Brandon Ayuk. Really good ball skills, can be fast, and a really physical route runner. And as a corner, I saw a lot of Champ Bailey in him. So really, whatever side of the ball you play him on, you're getting an elite player. With the third overall pick, I have the New York Giants taking Shedeur Sanders, quarterback from Colorado. The Giants are in desperate need of a quarterback that they can use for the future, and Shedeur Sanders is that answer. He can sit behind Russell Wilson for one whole year, learn the NFL, learn the New York media, learn how to compose himself from a veteran quarterback who has a very similar play style to him. I would say his player comp is Geno Smith. On to the fourth pick, I have the Patriots taking Abdul Carter from Penn State University. Abdul Carter is an extremely good player that plays with a high motor and high intelligence. If I had to give him a direct player comp, I would say it would be someone with Von Miller, a very twitchy edge rusher that gets a lot of pressures, not as many sacks, and a very good run stopper. I think he would be a weapon in the new Patriots defense. With the fifth overall pick, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars taking Mason Graham from the University of Michigan. Mason Graham is a force to be reckoned with. He is a physical freak, extremely strong, fast, really good pressure skills. And I think the Jaguars really have a lack of talent on their team, so I think you just have to go best player available, someone that you can plug and play in your defense. And now you have a pretty dangerous defensive line with Trayvon Walker, Josh Allen, and Mason Graham. A good player comparison for Mason Graham would be someone like Christian Wilkins, just a big physical monster, very athletic, pretty good power rush, and I think he'll be a great pick for the Jags. With the sixth overall pick, I have the Raiders selecting Ashton Jeanty from Boise State University. What's not to love about Ashton Jeanty? He's a plug-and-play running back. You can play him on all three downs. He's an amazing power. He can carry on inside zones, outside zones, anything you need. I think the Raiders are desperate for another playmaker to pair with Geno Smith and Brock Bowers. I think a good player comp for someone like Ashton Jeanty is someone like LaDainian Tomlinson. Low center of gravity, moves really hard. It would be very fun to see him in Oakland. With the seventh overall pick, I have the New York Jets taking Tyler Warren from Penn State University. Tyler Warren is a freak of nature. He's a blue-chip prospect in this draft. He's a top 5 player in my opinion, skill-wise. I think getting him into the Jets organization would be really good for Justin Fields, giving him a nice safety blanket underneath. I think a good way to describe his playmaking ability would be comparing him to someone like George Kittle. With the eighth overall pick, I have the Carolina Panthers trading their pick. I have the Carolina Panthers trading away the eighth overall pick for the 13th pick and an abundance of late day 2 and day 3 picks. And after trading that pick, I have the Miami Dolphins taking Will Campbell from LSU. Will Campbell is a blue chip prospect in this year's draft. A lot of people question his strengths, his weaknesses, his arm size, his flexibility. I don't think the Dolphins will see that as an issue. I think Will Campbell will plug in and play that tackle position better than any guy in this year's draft. With the ninth overall pick, I have the New Orleans Saints taking Will Johnson from University of Michigan. Johnson could be the best corner in this year's draft if Travis Hunter decides to play on offense. I have him going to the Saints because the Saints just need talent, and after losing Marshawn Lattimore, they could really use another corner in that team. And I have them going with Will Johnson, the best true corner prospect in this year's draft. On to the next pick. With the 10th overall pick, I have the Chicago Bears taking Jalen Walker from University of Georgia. Jalen Walker is a really good edge rusher, very fast, could play linebacker as well. I have Chicago going with the best defensive player available because Ben Johnson knows you need a top-tier edge rusher to command a really good defense. And I think Jalen Walker's pursuit of the quarterback can really help them get there. I think a good player comp would be someone like Jermaine Johnson from the New York Jets. With the 11th overall pick, I have the San Francisco 49ers taking Armand Membu from University of Missouri. Listen, the 49ers are about to pay their quarterback, so I have them taking a tackle, so you have someone to protect that quarterback. There's not a lot to say about a tackle prospect, but if I had to give him a player comparison, it would be Christian Darrisaw-esque. With the 12th overall pick, I have the Dallas Cowboys taking Tet McMillan from University of Arizona. A lot of bad things have came out about him not watching film, him not being as fast as people like, but the tape doesn't lie. The guy is a deep threat that can catch jump balls, is a great route runner, and is very clearly the best receiver in this year's draft. And the Cowboys can use another weapon for Dak Prescott after losing a guy like Brandon Cooks this year's offseason. Plus, they really just had a lack of weapons last year that really just caused their demise. I would say a great player comp for him would be someone like Drake London, but just a little bit faster. With the 13th overall pick, I have the Carolina Panthers taking Shamir Stewart from Texas A&M. Stewart is a hyper-aggressive edge rusher that plays with a lot of physicality. A lot of his plays don't lead to production, but he does have a lot of pressures, and he plays with very high effort. I think if I had to compare him to an NFL player, it would be someone like Trayvon Walker. And I think the Panthers could really use a high-energy edge rusher in their new scheme. I think that they're going to figure out the whole offense thing this year, and really what they need to focus on in this year's draft is going to be the defense. The 14th overall pick, I have the Indianapolis Colts trading away the pick. I have the Colts taking a 4th and a 5th next year just to move back 2 spots, just because there's been a run on edge rushers, and I know the Bengals are in desperate need of an edge rusher. And with the 14th overall pick, I have the Cincinnati Bengals taking Mike Green from Marshall University. Mike Green is the absolute opposite of Shamir Stewart. He's had a ton of production in his time at Marshall. I do have him falling a little bit because you do worry about the talent that he played versus. But overall, I think the Bengals are in desperate need of pass rush and some new energy on that defense. I would say a perfect player comp for him would be someone along the lines of Alex Highsmith. Just a very really good speed rusher. With the 15th overall pick, I have the Atlanta Falcons taking Walter Nolan from Ole Miss. I'm very aware that everyone in Atlanta probably wants the Falcons to take an edge rusher because they've been really avoiding it the past couple of years in the draft. That being said, with the loss of Grady Jarrett, I think Walter Nolan as a pass-rushing interior defensive lineman is one of the best in this year's class. I would say a great player comp for a player like Nolan would be a little bit bigger version of John Franklin Myers, a guy that can kind of run that 3 technique, C-gap, A-gap, anything you really need him to do. With the 16th overall pick, I have the Arizona Cardinals taking Calvin Banks from the University of Texas. Calvin Banks is a guy that can play left guard, left tackle, anything you really need him to. I don't think you can define him at one position, and I think that's something that the Cardinals can use. After trading back, I have the Colts taking Colston Loveland from the University of Michigan. The Colts getting Colston Loveland at pick 17 would be the steal of the draft. He is, in my opinion, a top 8 player in this year's draft, but he plays a very unimportant position. I think Colston Loveland is really good as well because he can do it on both ends, on the blocking end and in the pass-catching end. And I think the Colts would be stupid not to take him here, especially give Anthony Richardson or Indiana Jones a really good safety blanket. I would say a great player comp for a player like Loveland would be someone like Sam Laporta. With the 18th overall pick, I have the Seattle Seahawks taking Gray Zabel from North Dakota State University. I know North Dakota State's slipping into the first round again, but I really do think that they're going to produce a great product here. A lot of people have Gray listed as a tackle. I think he can plug and play at guard for the Seahawks. On to the playoff teams now. With the 19th overall pick, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers trading away their pick. I have the Houston Texans giving one of the second-round picks that they received in the Laramie Tunsil deal to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers so they can trade up a couple of spots. After the run on tackles, I'm sure it's not going to come as a huge surprise, but I'm going to have the Houston Texans trading up and taking Josh Simmons from Ohio State University. Listen, the Texans traded or released a lot of the offensive linemen on their team this year. They need a new franchise left tackle, and who better than C.J. Stroud's best friend, Josh Simmons, from Ohio State University, pairing back up with his former teammate. With the 20th overall pick, I have the Carolina Panthers taking Omarion Hampton from University of North Carolina. I think the Broncos would really use someone like Omarion Hampton well, especially with that really good O-line, and really did not have a running game last year. I think they probably could have been a top 4 team in the AFC had they had a running back last year. And a player like Hampton's speed with that O-line would give the Broncos a great running game. I think a great player comp for someone like Hampton would be Jonathan Taylor. It's not just because they both wear number 28, it's because the speed at which they play at. With the 21st overall pick, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers taking Jackson Dart from Ole Miss. I think Jackson Dart would be a really good quarterback in the Steelers system, someone that can sit back and learn from Aaron Rodgers for a year if Aaron Rodgers decides to sign. If he's not signing, I don't think it's a great draft pick because I don't think Jackson Dart is a really good day one starter. Regardless, in this mock draft, I have the Steelers selecting their quarterback of the future. A mobile quarterback, someone with a really strong arm, a player I would compare a lot to Brock Purdy. With the 22nd overall pick, I have the Chargers taking Kenneth Grant from University of Michigan. Now, not only do I have Jim Harbaugh taking one of his guys, but Jim Harbaugh loves his big men, and I have them going with Kenneth Grant because he can fill that nose tackle position, plug and play, day one, and I think he would be very useful on Jim Harbaugh's defense. I think a good player comp for someone like Grant would be Fletcher Cox, a really good D tackle that can also occasionally get to the quarterback. With the 23rd overall pick, I have the Packers taking Jahdae Barron from the University of Texas. I know Packers fans, you really want a receiver, but I think that Barron's versatility, especially with the loss of Eric Stokes, would be something that you cannot pass up on. A real ball hawk at the defensive position would pair up very nice with Jair Alexander. I think a great player comp for someone like him would be like Deron Bland, maybe not with the exact ball skills, a little bit less, but still plays the ball a lot. With the 24th pick, I have the Minnesota Vikings trading away their pick. Not a lot of compensation here. I have the Commanders moving up because the Vikings do not have a lot of draft picks and they could afford to move back and get some late capital. And with the 24th overall pick, I have the Washington Commanders taking Mykel Williams from University of Georgia. Mykel is a very lengthy and big edge rusher who had a lot of production at Georgia, sat behind all those greats like Trayvon Walker and guys like Jordan Davis, and really just sat back and learned, and now he's producing at a very high level. I would compare him to a guy like Greg Rousseau. He's played a lot of positions at the University of Georgia, but I think he's primarily an edge rusher. And I think there's a lot of edge-needy teams coming up in the draft, so I have the Commanders getting their edge rusher of the future, putting some pressure on the quarterback, which is very important in that very competitive NFC East division. With the 25th overall pick, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking Jahad Campbell from University of Alabama. Listen, we need to prepare for the reality that Levante David is going to retire at some point, and I think there's no one better to substitute in for him than Campbell. He can run edge, he can stay in coverage. He's really a do-it-all linebacker, which I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would use very well. And I think a great player comp for a player like him would be someone like Frankie Louvu. And with the 26th overall pick, I have the LA Rams taking Matthew Golden from University of Texas. Matthew Golden is one of the best receivers in this year's class, and I just have him falling because there's not a lot of need for receiver this year. NFL is filled with great receivers, but I have the Rams getting the trifecta of receivers with Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, and Matthew Golden, giving Matt Stafford all the tools he needs to succeed. I think a good player comp for someone like Matthew with his skill set would be someone like Chris Olave. With the 27th overall pick, I have the Baltimore Ravens taking Malachi Starks from University of Georgia. Malachi Starks is another player you can plug in at free safety. He's really, really good in coverage. He can just kind of sit back and go to work, and I think the Ravens could really use that after having Marcus Williams' experiment kind of fail. And I think a great comparison for Starks would be someone along the lines of Kirby Joseph, someone that can just kind of sit back in coverage, make plays, swap balls, stop the run, while Kyle Hamilton does his thing on the other side of the field. With the 28th pick, I have the Detroit Lions selecting James Pierce from University of Tennessee. James Pierce is a very high-energy player that the only reason anyone has him falling this low is because of serious attitude concerns, which they seem to have a lot of on that Volunteers defense. But I think that Dan Campbell will get him right, make sure his mind's in a good place, and really understand that he is a good player. And the Lions have been looking for that second edge rusher to pair with Aiden Hutchinson for a very long time. After trading back, I have the Minnesota Vikings trading back a second time. But this time you get a lot more return on your investment. I give the Miami Dolphins trading Jalen Ramsey to the Minnesota Vikings for that pick. And with the 29th overall pick, I have the Miami Dolphins taking Benjamin Morrison from the University of Notre Dame. You know, he's just a new corner for the Dolphins, just basically getting rid of one corner, replacing him with another. He's a very man-coverage corner. Reminds me a lot of Quinyon Mitchell, maybe a little bit of Kendall Fuller. And I think he'll do great on that Miami Dolphins defense. And with the 30th overall pick, I have the Buffalo Bills taking Shavon Revel Jr. from ECU University. Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane made it very clear in their press conference that they want tall and fast, and Revel Jr. is just super tall, super fast at a position that they need at corner. I think if you sat him for a year behind Dane Jackson, that he would be ready to roll, and I think he would just be a slam dunk pick. And with the 31st overall pick, I have the runner-up Kansas City Chiefs trading out of their pick. I have the Chiefs, just moving 2 6th-round picks, letting the Browns get that player with the 5th-year option. And with the 31st overall pick, I have the Cleveland Browns taking Jalen Milroe from the University of Alabama. Jalen Milroe is the fastest quarterback that I've ever seen play the game of football, and he has a really strong arm. If he can work on his awareness and his arm mechanics a little bit better, sitting behind Joe Flacco for a year, I think it would prove to be a very good pick. And Joe Flacco can mentor quarterbacks better than most. So I have the Browns pairing Jalen Milroe and Travis Hunter to form an extremely dominant and dynamic offense. And with the 32nd overall pick, I have the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles taking Nick Amunuwarie from South Carolina. He would be a plug-and-play safety that Eagles roster does not have a lot of holes, but they did lose Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. He could plug right in, play safety. He would dominate strong side. I think it would be an overall win for the Eagles to have him on the roster. Leave a like, subscribe if you're new. I'm responding to all the comments. Just, NFL Draft Talk. It's my favorite. Let me know what you think of your team's pick in the comments.